Today we're reviewing the special FP.JOURNE Vagabondage 3. The name itself is sadly not a reference to bondage, but instead translates to wandering in French, a reference to the watch's complication. Let's begin. Starting things with a brief history lesson, the first Vagabondage was released in 2006 with a wandering digital hours display. This was followed by the Vagabondage 2, which came out in 2010 with digital jumping hours and minutes. The third generation came out in 2017 and featured the world's first digital jumping seconds display. A jumping seconds display is a big deal due to the amount of power it requires to move the discs at regular intervals. For example, the Lange Zeitwerk uses a constant force escapement to power a jump once a minute. Similar to the Zeitwerk, the Vagabondage 3 uses a remontoire d'égalité, French for constant force escapement, that releases power every second. Unlike the Zeitwerk though, which has the luxury of letting the spring of its constant force mechanism recharge over the course of a minute, the remontoire in the Vagabondage only has a second to jump the same number of discs. What's truly impressive is that not only is the V3 vastly more power intensive than the Zeitwerk, but it is also packed into a much smaller and thinner package, while also having a greater power reserve. Although some journalists at the time doubted the reliability of such an innovative movement, the fact that this early model still functions well should put any such questions to rest. In my opinion, the sheer engineering that has gone into the V3 makes it one of the greatest Journes ever. Engineering and innovation aside, the V3 is also a stunning watch. The dial is simply mesmerizing, with the jumping seconds display a joy to look at. It sounds strange, but I find it therapeutic watching the seconds go by. The colors on this rose gold model, which was limited to 68 pieces, also work remarkably well. The rose gold case pairs magnificently with the salmon plates and the glimpses of gold movement through the smoke crystal, and I personally think it looks much better than the slightly cold and dull platinum variation. Speaking of the smoke crystal, the V3 to me is like the Lange Zeitwerk Lumen on steroids. You get a clearer and better view of how all the mechanisms work, from the complex jumping seconds to something simple like pulling out the crown. Unlike many skeleton watches though, the V3 achieves all of this while being very legible and clean. In terms of the case back, Journe's gold movements are always something special to look at due to the novelty. I don't think finishing is on the level of something like a Voutilainen, but it's certainly no slouch either. Finally, let's talk about what the V3 is like on the wrist. As mentioned earlier, the package itself is quite compact and thin. Yet, even though the watch measures a mere 45.2 mm by 37.5 mm, the Tortue case shape and 7.8 mm thickness allow it to cover my 18 cm wrist well. Compared to something like a Lange 1, which is 38.5 mm in diameter, I'd say the V3 wears better. The modern aesthetics of the V3 also give it versatility. I'd say it looks equally at home, dressed both up and down. On the whole, the FPJ Vagabondage 3 is one of my favorite watches I've ever experienced, featuring stunning looks, innovative engineering, high-end finishing, and good wearability. While some may criticize its rarity, I actually think what Journe has done with this watch is praiseworthy. Specifically, those who own a Vagabondage can purchase the new 2022 version with the matching serial number. While this may deprive new collectors from getting one, I think that rewarding long-time loyal customers of a brand is definitely a good thing that is becoming increasingly rare in today's world. People who have stood by a brand for a long time before it became popular should be appreciated, not ostracized. Thank you for watching. Next up will either be this Kari Voutilainen or the VC47101. Do let me know in the comments which you would like me to review first.